Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the October Scottsdale Parent Council. First, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is over here in the back corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we have our land acknowledgement statement. As we gather for this meeting, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we do our business today. We wish to acknowledge this land on which this SPC meeting is taking place. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Hohokam, the Acamel O'odham, most recently the Salt River Pima Indian community. Today, this meeting place is still home to many indigenous people from across Maricopa, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. Okay, today's meeting will begin, as we usually do, with questions for Dr. Menzel. If you have a question that you have not put in the basket, please bring it up on an index card. And then we're going to have an information session on the legislature. And then we're going to hear from Dennis Roller on bonds and how we use them for our facilities and what's coming in the future related to bonds. And we'll end meetings like we usually do with any updates from representatives and updates from the executive board. Okay, I'm going to take a seat for Q&A.
That's a very good idea.
You can stand over there.
Well, this looks like more fun.
And I'm so sorry, I'm putting two more in the basket.
That's all right. Now we know whose they are.
All right.
Adrian.
Okay, I'm starting with them. Can we talk about the Algebra 1 WIG? I'd like to share with you about 2002. You have to do that in a microphone.
No, well, I was going to say, this could be a private conversation.
Oh, okay.
But do the parents know about the wildly important goal that's coming up potentially?
Do you want to explain what a WIG is?
So I can explain the wildly important goal that's been proposed on the academic front. Wildly important goals are designed to be levers of change that will have significant impact. So we have two that are in front of the governing board for consideration. One on achievement related to math, because that's been our area of focus for improvement. And the second is around enrollment, full and thriving schools. But on the math WIG, it's framed this way because the WIG is from X to Y by when. So from 25% to 75% of our 8th grade students completing Algebra 1 or advanced math by 2030. And so there were a lot of conversations about how do we find a meaningful math WIG. A year ago, we talked about 3% growth for each grade level cohort between grades 3 through 8. And that's not inspirational, it's not aspirational. If you look around the country in terms of what people are doing, the high-performing districts offer 8th grade algebra predominantly, and 9th grade algebra for the most part is seen as remedial. And the challenge that we have is what we believe our students are capable of doing. I think that if other top-performing districts around the country have been able to find a way for the vast majority of their 8th graders to successfully complete 8th grade algebra, the students in Scottsdale are certainly capable of doing it. What it requires is that we change what we focus our time and energy on from elementary all the way up through 8th grade algebra. We're in the middle of a math curriculum adoption. We know that there are predecessor skills in algebra that need to be emphasized in order for students to be ready to succeed in 8th grade algebra. The reason the WIG is by 2030 is because we know it's going to take time to put all of those things in place. Yet high expectations for our students mean that more of our students are going to achieve those expectations. If you are a student who's motivated in STEM fields or you want to attend an Ivy League school, if you haven't completed algebra in 8th grade, you're not going to get there because you won't be able to get to Calc BC and the other things that you need without doing summer school or some other contortions to get there. 8th grade algebra is a target that puts us on par with the top performing districts in the country. And we have a way to get there. And for students who need more time because they haven't mastered it, there'll still be the option for 9th grade algebra. But if your passion isn't math and you're not going to be doing Calc BC, which would have been me, it means that in your high school schedule, you've now opened up additional opportunities to pursue the things that you're passionate about for electives or your career path or other opportunities in the schedule. And so the reason why we chose that lever is we know math is a significant indicator. And while Scottsdale Unified School District is the top performing school district in both ELA and math in Maricopa County for this last testing cycle, and we are the top performing district, and if you take charters that serve more than 10,000 students, we're the top of all of the districts and charters serving more than 10,000 kids in math and ELA. We are doing well, but we need to do better. And so part of the intent is to say we're going to raise the bar, we're going to provide support for our teachers, we're going to provide support for our staff, and we're going to be able to put something in place that actually will move the needle instead of the 3% goals, which people generally shrug at and say, well, we didn't make it and it's because the kids. No, let's figure out a way to really change the game by raising the expectations.
Does anyone? Okay. I can read it. You want me to read? Okay. Why are the Cheyenne PTO moms talking about a move to Copper Ridge?
So there can be lots of reasons why people might be talking about a move, but you may remember that communication has gone out about phase 1 and phase 2 of repurposing conversations. And schools, specific schools, were listed in those conversations. So if you were to walk down to my office and take a look at the map of the school district and you see where the schools are located, and you just wonder out loud for a minute about the facilities we have and how they're being utilized, it wouldn't take long for someone to look at that and say, Cheyenne, where it's located, they have just over 900 students. They have a wait list for kindergarten because they don't have room to grow in kindergarten. They have been in high demand. Copper Ridge used to have more than 1,200 students on that campus and can accommodate 1,600. And they have 441 students this year, 92 of whom are 8th graders and 21 are kindergartners. So if you're just wondering out loud about what options might there be when you think about repurposing in phase 2, if you did a flip-flop of those buildings and Cheyenne moved to Copper Ridge, you'd fill it and have the ability to grow. It's the most expensive non-high school in Scottsdale to operate because of how low the enrollment is and how massive the square footage is. And Dennis can tell you more about that. So when you're doing these I wonder what's possible conversations, sometimes trial balloons go out to say, okay, would the Cheyenne families even consider such a thing, right? If Cheyenne families said, you know, we are wedded to this campus, there's no way we would want to think about doing something different, I don't believe the governing board would impose a move on them to say we're going to move the Cheyenne Traditional to Copper Ridge. But the possibility of saying, is there a way to utilize our district assets that maximize them so we have full and thriving schools? Well, that should be on the table. Phase 2 is in phase 2 for a reason. There are a lot of scenarios that could work. That's just one of many, and there are other moving parts and pieces. And so I expect that we'll hear more than just ideas like that. There are lots of different things that people will suggest when we begin to have those conversations. And that's why it's phase 2, because it takes time to have those discussions to see what might make the most sense as we think about 27, 28, and where we need to be ultimately with our enrollment. And just to kind of put it in perspective why this is so important, since 2010, when we had 26,000 students, we're down to under 20,000 K-12. 6,000 plus students that we have fewer today than we had back in 2010. How many fewer buildings do we have than we had in 2010? So if you lose 23% of your enrollment in 15 years and you don't do anything about your footprint, you have a lot of underutilized space, which means it's money being spent to keep buildings open, not money being spent to pay your teachers or to pay your support staff or to invest in the specialized programming that draws people in. And so I would argue that there have been decision points along the way for Scottsdale Unified where boards have considered this. It's not new, right? They were talking about it when John Barrissey was superintendent from 04 to 08. And there was a merger of Zuni and Aztec in 08, 09 that became Redfield. But then after that, outside of Tonalea Elementary, which kind of bounced around because the building was condemned, there hasn't been a closure of a building. And so you had that merger in 08, 09, and then we have not made any other major changes. So we're having the conversations now. They'd started under John Creekgard in 2018, grow or consolidate. Then what happened in 2020? Anybody remember? something called COVID. And so we pivoted to deal with COVID for a few years. Every district lost a lot of kids, and so then we wanted to give time for schools to be able to grow their enrollment to see, are we going to be able to be viable? Last fall, August of 2024, we started with very intentional and focused conversations with schools under 450 and talking about, okay, what are our strategies, what are we going to do? 400 is really was the floor we had drawn that time. Said if you're below 400, this is the highest level of urgency. And then between 400 and 450 was this gray spot, and that was partly because of how we were thinking about assigning assistant principals. So there were a lot of conversations that took place on those things, but ultimately 6,000 students would be the equivalent of 10 elementary schools, each with 600 kids. It would be the equivalent of 3 to 4 large high schools. So 6,000 kids is a large number of students to lose over that period of time. But because you didn't lose them all in one fell swoop, you grew into the spaces that you had. It feels like, you know, you're full when you're not really full. But now we're at a place where when you look at our capacity and our ability to sustain it, because the state's not providing additional funding. In fact, they're providing incentives for more people not to choose Scottsdale. We want them to choose us. We want to be the premier choice, but we also have to take a hard look at the demographic trends and the financial reality. And so that's kind of what's behind the two phases of the conversation. And they're not easy, but they're really important.
When will parents be able to see demographic trends in detail that are driving this?
So what I would say is go watch the April 29th meeting and download the PowerPoint. The board did a deep dive study session on our enrollment trends and demographic data. We have a new study. We expect to see it in November, so it'll be updated from the 22-23 demographic trends. But that study session has most of the information that anyone would need to see to understand where we have been, 2010, to where we are now, and what that means from a financial perspective. And then Tuesday night, the governing board will be having a deep dive on the budget piece, and this will come up again.
Okay, we're pivoting to AI. My daughter recently lost hours worth of work while using a web-based AI tool for an assignment from her teacher. Does the district have any control over new AI apps or programs that are being used in the classroom so that they can control the settings to maybe do things like it's 2025, you can save your work as you go, like Google Docs?
So I was looking to see if Christine Harrington is still in the room or not. So I don't know, so I'm gonna assume, but I don't know, that they're using part of the Magic Suite tool of AI that we've got approval for both staff and students to utilize. So I don't know the answer to the question, is there any autosave or what kind of safeguards we can put in place, but it is certainly something we can look into unless Christine knows the answer.
That was going to be my question, is all of the apps being used should be approved, and we should have a DPA in place, and those things are routed through the technology department for review. So in theory, if you share with me the name of the particular application they were using, then I can help chase that down. But yes, I would hope that there is an autosave. We have heard, this is kind of just one of those quirky things, but for our students, when they get to the high school level, they're not accustomed to using a Windows device where a Word document doesn't always automatically save. And so we have had some of our kids that are used to the Google space and their Google Chromebook learn the hard way. So we have heard that before, but I had not heard this about a particular AI app. And certainly if you share with me that name, I can chase it down.
Is the district still allowed to share parent contact information with PTOs, PTAs, APTs? Why or why not? And I guess I know the answer, but what is the district going to do to work with PTOs to ensure that this change does not affect or hinder their ability to support SUSD schools?
So I think that's going to come up in the next panel discussion. But the long answer, or short answer to the question is that there was a change in statute that requires parents to opt in for us to share the information with the PTOs or PTAs to communicate with our parents. So any opt-in provision you have means that there are going to be some who either don't check the box because they didn't read closely and forgot to, or because they didn't want to. We think, at least Alexis has speculated, that maybe that was an oversight on the part of the person who introduced the legislation. So maybe it will be something that can get fixed in this next session so that we can continue sharing like we have in the past. That would be the goal. But opt-in is the key, and if there are parents who are saying, wait, I'm not getting information and I want it, they can contact SIMAR and we can get that corrected on the opt-in forms.
That's it. Thank you.
If there's no more questions?
No.
No? That's great, wonderful. I want to thank you for being here. I always appreciate the fact that you show up, you participate, you support, you ask good questions. Tonight you're going to have a good legislative conversation, and then Mr. Rayler is the best in the business in facility services. So there's no question that you can ask him that will stump him, but I challenge you to try.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley Chambers. I'm the new Director of Advocacy for Scottsdale Parents Council. I moved to this district last year. I was located in Desert Ridge, and I have 3 kiddos. They all go to Cochise Elementary, and so I'm really happy to be a part of this. A little bit about myself. I was a lawyer in Arizona for 10 years, and then I got into policy when I became executive director of the nonprofit that represented all the attorneys that in the area of law that I practiced. About 2 years ago, I became executive director and lobbyist for a children's health nonprofit here in Arizona. And I'm down at the Capitol all the time dealing with our lawmakers. So when I heard about this position, I got really excited about it. The main thing that I would like to do, and I see this as a long-term position for myself because my kiddos are young and I'm going to be in this district for a very long time, God willing. But the main thing that I see myself is to be sort of a bridge between what's happening at the Capitol and how that's going to impact the families, specifically the families that live in our district and that whose kiddos go to public school here. So I really am going to work closely with Alexis, who's our amazing district lobbyist, to figure out exactly what those bills are, whether if it's affecting our funding, if it's affecting our teachers, curriculum, whatever it is, and make sure that we understand it and give it to you in information that's accurate and that's easy to understand. The second thing I think that's really important is I am a huge believer that information is power. I think that the more that we as parents understand exactly the policies that are being put forward and are able to use our own voices in a way that feels more comfortable for us to speak up and really have our voices heard on these issues is really the only way we're going to get our needs met. And I think just from my other work, and something I think that's really important as well, is meeting people where they're at, right? We are all parents, we are busy. Some of us work outside the home, some of us just work inside the home, but there's a lot of things, and we'll talk about a few of them, that we can each do during the legislative session, which typically runs from like January to March, basically, or January to May, basically. We can do from home that are super impactful and that are really gonna make a difference in letting lawmakers know that we're here, we care about our kiddos, we care about our schools, we want it to be the best that it can be, and we're not gonna tolerate any nonsense. So I'm an advocate at heart, so my door is always open. I'll have my contact information. I really wanna help the district. I really wanna help our kids, our teachers, and our families. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you guys for welcoming me to this district with open arms, and I'm really happy to be here. So Dennis is facilities, and he's gonna talk a little bit about bonds and overrides and how the district uses them and how the district makes policy. I think for all of us in the room, I'm sorry if this is repetitive, but I do think it's important for us to have like a baseline understanding of what bonds and overrides are, why we need them, so that Dennis's presentation about how we use them is gonna make a little bit more sense. So again, apologies if you already know this. So Alexis is our amazing lobbyist. She represents our interests, so SUSD's interests at the legislature. So when there's something that's going to affect us, she's the one that goes and talks to she has great relationships there. She's super knowledgeable about the education system here. So Alexis, can you give us a quick overview of the legislators' makeup currently in terms of political parties and the governor's party?
Yeah, good to see you all. I see some faces I've seen now at this for a couple years now. Yeah, so our legislature and the executive branch are an interesting makeup right now. We've got a Republican majority in the House and Senate and a Democrat governor, which makes getting things done really, really challenging. Not only sort of policy, but also the budget space. That's been a really challenging feat for them to pass a budget in time before a government shutdown. I know we're experiencing that at the federal level, but we've been getting dangerously close to the state level now for the last few years as a result of this sort of divided government. But also just something extra unique about the last couple years. I've really seen a lot of inter-party disagreements. So, you know, I've been doing this work for almost 15 years. I represent a variety of entities on behalf of my firm, State 48 Public Affairs. And something I've really noticed a trend in the last few years is you know, the Republicans in the House, the Republicans in the Senate, the Democrats in the House, the Democrats in the Senate, sort of almost having an each your own mentality. It's really fascinating to see the camaraderie, even within parties, has really started to disappear. So if you can imagine a divided government in those branches, a divided government within a party in a specific chamber makes things extra difficult. So it's really hard at the Capitol, truly, to get anything done. We have exhibited some good stuff. Last year, we were really excited to pass some additional categories of spending for public school tax credits. This was something that we brought forward to the group. Dr. Menzel and his team identified an opportunity. This is a source for additional funds for different student outcomes, and we were super excited that that passed into law. So those types of efforts are able to get done. Those are bipartisan, sort of shared interest, able to get signed. And, you know, I think some people in this room, as well as many others in the district, help make that happen, and something we're excited about.
Yeah, so I think one good thing is that with this sort of division that is sort of fracturing the government, is it sort of opens up a space for parents to really get in there and to have their voices heard. If they're not relying on each other at the legislature as much, maybe they'll listen to their constituents. So that's where our voices are super important and super powerful. Switching gears a little bit, so I'm from Virginia, and we never had bonds overrides. And I assumed it was the same when I moved to Arizona, but in Virginia, we just paid our taxes, and that's how our public schools were funded. So is that not the case in Arizona? And if so, why not?
So I have two kiddos in the public school system over in Mesa, and I just use this for reference because a couple years ago, our bond failed. Thankfully, our override passed by a hair, but our bond failed. And that made me mad as a parent. When that type of stuff happens because of some of the rhetoric associated with public schools, it impacts my kiddos' outcome. And so I really took that personally, because the passage of a bond and the ability for school districts to pursue overrides are one of the very few tools that you all have available as empowered parents, as empowered communities, to say, I'd like to invest more in education in our community because I acknowledge that it yields better outcomes for our community and, for me personally, my students. So, you know, those tools are within the sort of makeup of how we determine education funding in Arizona. We are definitely tied at the hands of what our legislature allocates annually. So a bond and override is the one tool a local community has to empower themselves to draw down more funding for education. So those are vitally important tools. For many years, I've seen different attempts to tinker or get rid of these bond and override tools, which have never been successful. But again, that is something that we are having to combat, or them tinkering with them to make them more difficult for us to be able to access. But, you know, long story, the bond is really critical for infrastructure. I know you're going to get kind of a little bit more detail on your bond projects, but, you know, oftentimes these are the very infrastructure that our kiddos are going to be able to utilize now and into the future. And so, you know, the passage of those bonds are critically important and are that tool for additional education funding that we have access to. And then the overrides are allowing us to spend up to 15% over the revenue control limit set by the state. So these are the two tools that we have as a local community to say we want more funding in education, because the state, I mean, no matter which way you slice it, we're not doing well in education funding at the state level. So we should feel empowered. I think, parents being the messenger to say, this is not just important for my kiddos, but these are the kiddos that are taking care of the next generation. So we need to make sure we invest in them now, because they're going to be investing in us in the future. So I hope when bond and overrides pass, people in this room feel empowered and do the work, because it makes all the difference for school districts. It's one of the very few tools we have available, and so we should really utilize that and believe in that, because when they don't pass, it is absolutely devastating. When that bond didn't pass in my local community, I work really closely on that. It was devastating, and honestly, it was a bit of offensive to me, because I just can't imagine why we want to invest in kiddos. So I just, I know he'll go over sort of the details of bond and overrides, but those are two critical tools that you all can be empowered in your community to help them understand the importance and how this will yield better student outcomes.
One thing I think that's really important for us all is that there's a lot of misinformation there, and a lot of our lawmakers sort of repeat, and then it sort of becomes like a vicious rumor. So one rumor that I've been hearing a lot is that our schools in Arizona have more money now than they've ever had before. So why would taxpayers vote for overrides? Can you talk about a little bit about whether our schools have more funding now than they ever have before?
Yeah, I absolutely hate that myth. When Ashley was kind of preparing me with some questions, this sort of came up, and it was a good question, because I anecdotally know that we certainly do not fund schools adequately, but it really led me on a journey to researching different data points in this. And no matter which way you slice it, we are at the bottom. We should not be very proud of that. We are at the bottom, no matter which way you slice it, whether it's a heat map showing where we fall, an Excel spreadsheet, or a nice chart with different colors. We are at the bottom, and that should not be okay. It is. I don't know why that is out there. It is frustrating, and so when they tie that to bonds and overrides and say that bonds and overrides shouldn't pass because they get enough money, well, let us be the judge of that, right? Don't get in the way and don't create all of this false information. Let us be the judge. And again, just doing a simple search, there is no data point that puts us anywhere near a pleasant spot that I think we should be in education funding for our kiddo. So I empower you all to do your own research. If you hear that, please just do a Google search, no matter what data set it is. One might put us at 49th, one might put us at 47th. That's unacceptable in my mind as a parent of a public school student. So it is frustrating that myth is out there. It is certainly kind of intended to bring down a bond and override, but at the end of the day, I'm glad that parents like you are in the room. I hope that you guys can be advocates and surrogates of the correct information, so that when that bond and override is on your ballot, you have your community educated and not hearing false information.
And hopefully that's not something that we'll see this session, is some sort of bill that would prevent municipalities from doing bonds and override. But if there is something that a lawmaker introduces in January, then Alexis and I are going to come back in February, and we'll talk more about the specific bills that we see this session. One thing I want to talk about is
Can I just on the bond and override? I will just on one bill that's come up the last few years that is not entirely getting rid of the tools, but would make it very challenging for passage, is requiring 60% vote for a bond and override to take effect. And my kind of response back to them is, well, they should get 60% of the vote to become an elected official then as well, right? Like it is incredibly challenging in this day and age to get 60% on anything, even if it is one of the strongest polling issues, Our world does not result in 60% plus to get things across the finish line. And so it is essentially legislation intended to make sure bonds and overrides never pass again. So those types of things, it's not entirely ripping it away, but it's making it impossible. I anticipate that will come up again. Something we see is they'll introduce legislation for several years. If they've been failing in that mechanism, they'll do a ballot referral. So they can skip sort of the legislative process that has to go through both chambers and signed by the governor. They can just put it right on the ballot, and their talking point will be, let the people vote. And, while I certainly understand that, again, it's the rhetoric associated with that is playing with fire. Should something like that pass, these tools will never be available to school districts again because they will never get to 60%. Never say never, there's probably a few, but it is intended to make sure that that completely diminishes that bond and override tool. So those types of things, I'll work with Ashley closely, but those are the types of things that we really need to message, that leave those tools in the hands of the community. Don't take those tools away from us. We will make those decisions, not you as a legislature.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's super important. And that's where that misinformation piece comes in that people will say, well, what's the difference with changing the level up a little bit? Like if people in your community want it, then who cares if it's 60% versus a little bit of a lower number? Well, that's a misinformation piece. It's like a red herring. It's just leave it as it is. The tool is working. We should have authority over it. We don't need a change of it. So if you are spotting something like that, or if you're hearing rumors like that in your communities, please come to me. I will talk to Alexis about it, and we'll give you the appropriate non-misinformation information. I think that's really important. And, I need your help too, in that it's going to take all of us to really take us from 49th/47th in funding and lifting us up to a place where we can really be proud of our schools and our school districts. I know we are, but we could be even in a better position, and I think we owe it to our communities and our kids. So if you hear something, or if you know of some moms or some dads or some families that would benefit from a talk, please reach out to me. I'm happy to do that, and I think it's really important. My goal is to build us into an army that's out there looking for our kiddos and to demand better for our kids. I do have 2 slides in terms of things that we can do. If you're not able to reach out to me for more information, I want you to have these 2 things in your back pocket. So there should be a QR code. Oh, is it up there? So there's a QR code for request to speak. It's a complete this is how you find your Arizona lawmaker. It's super easy. So if you ever want to email your lawmaker on something, that would be how you would find it. It takes you 5 minutes to put in your address, and then you find out who your lawmaker is. And you can email them all the time. You can call them all the time. They respond to constituents, and they log every single one of their calls if you're talking to them about an issue. The second thing is, here it is, request to speak. So this is like a complete misnomer. It sounds like if you know what this is, it means you have to haul your butt down to the Capitol and request to speak on an issue. It's a complete misnomer. But if you scan that, you can sign up for a system that allows you to thumbs up or thumbs down bills that are introduced in the legislature from the comfort of your own home. You can even write a little note, and then lawmakers, when the bill goes to the floor, they can read all those comments. So they can see if 500 people in Arizona are thumbs upping and saying, we like this bill, or 500 people are saying, no, we hate this bill. So that's like an easy tool that you can do from your home. The only trick is, and they make this hard, right? They are not gonna make it easy for y'all, is that you have to verify it at the Capitol. But my email is up there, and I'm at the Capitol all the time, so I can verify your account for you. All you have to do is you have to scan that QR code, sign up for an account. You have to be a registered Arizona voter. And then throughout the session, if you email me, I will send you the bills that I either want you to thumbs up or thumbs down, and why. Really easy, super important. I really cannot stress enough. Also, please email me if you are interested in learning a little bit more, or if you have questions, and then spread the word about me, about this advocacy position, and about the request to speak system. Yeah, we can email for you guys too. Yeah, that'd be great. Does anybody else have any other questions for Alexis or myself? Please. Yes. And I would love to come to your APT, PTO, blah, 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 whatever the letters are that you use at your school. I would love to come and just explain a little bit about the tools that we have. And, you know, if you guys are open to it and you want me to do a little spiel, I'm happy to do that too. But I'm really trying to build a movement here for our district. And so any help or support you guys can offer, I would love to have.
So about the 501c3, as long as you don't take a stance and tell people what to think about whatever or how to vote, like that's fine. But so, and which is why we're just sharing information. Yeah.
I'll just quickly note when Dr. Menzel was walking out, he mentioned the legislation, that the opt-in. And so this was tied to, and honestly, I think it's an unintended consequence, but this is tied to legislation dealing with the student directory. And really, I think it's tied, the intent was mostly student data privacy. This is just an unintended consequence rolling out. So I did offer to talk to the bill sponsor, which I will do, to ensure this wasn't the consequence. I find tremendous value. I was sharing with Kimberly at my school when I get the text messages, tonight is something for the PTO, or please come to the PTO meeting. Oh my gosh, we're busy parents. Thank God I got that text message. They certainly don't want to stifle parent engagement. I don't think that was the sponsor's intent. I just think this might have been an unintended consequence of this student data privacy narrative. So all that being said, I will circle back on that issue because I'm equally personally afraid of that outcome because it will stifle parent engagement in this. And that is, for me, what I think is one of the most important things for kiddos to be successful is parent engagement. That's my opinion. So we will look into that and get back to you guys.
Yeah, and so when Alexis figures out what the intent of the bill was and how it's being interpreted / implemented, if it's not, we'll get an official position and then we'll be able to let you guys know, like, hey, confirmation, it's not intended for this. Y'all can feel free to text, email out your contact info. But like Alexis said, it's probably just an unintended consequence of, shockingly, a not great thing that happened. So I had a request from Dennis, and the request is to know once the bond / override is approved by the voters, if it is, what do you guys at the district do with it? What's your process for figuring out, like, okay, this is how we're going to spend that money?
I'll tell you.
Great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dennis Rayler. I'm the Director of Facilities for the district. I've been in the district since 2016, just before the 2016 bond passed. At that time, Denise Birdwell and her gang was in charge, and after about 6 or 7 months, they were ousted, and they handed me the pile of doo-doo to do. About the bonds and overrides. First of all, if I could direct your attention to the screens, our communications department back in 2016 put together this trifold mailer that explained all about overrides and bonds. What it was that we were planning on doing with the bond. It's not like we have a chunk of money and just arbitrarily decide what we're going to do. All the projects are predetermined. Has anyone been at any of my meetings that I've been doing just recently? So right now, you don't count, Josh. Right now, I am doing a district tour, meeting with all staff, all PTOs, parents, whoever will show up. Unfortunately, the parent side has been super, super light. I was at Saguaro last night, one person showed up. So I know the schools are trying to get the information out. Some people suggest we need to send out mailers. We have Parent Square. People get the information. It's just a matter of reading it and making time to come see my presentation. So the bond is laid out. Right now, I'm working on capital planning for the district for the next 10 years, from 26 to 36. Through that process, we will identify every single project at every single school, put a number to it, and then with the help of the community, of the teachers, determine what projects are going to be done. Obviously, voters will not necessarily vote for a $700 million bond, but they might vote for a $400 million bond. What was Mesa asking for? Can I ask? Do you remember? I want to say it was close to 500 million. Chandler, I think theirs was 400 million. Things cost a lot of money. Who's replaced an air conditioning unit lately? My goodness, it is so expensive. So we in the district have 4 million square feet of buildings under roof. We have 600 acres of property that's maintained by our grounds teams, and that includes parking lots and everything else. So a flyer like this, and I'll scroll down a little bit so you can see the whole thing. Was very well put together, and it identified for the voters well before the vote what it was that we were going to do at every school, whether it was a life cycle project, whether it was a security project, everything was listed. And so everyone knew when they went to go vote that, hey, this is what we're going to get at our school. We're going to get athletics. Athletics was the football fields and the tracks that cost millions of dollars to do. So in my department, I get about $2.8 million in capital every year. It's a lot of money, right? In the first month of the school year, I had to replace a chiller at Copper Ridge. That was $562,000. I had to replace 2 AC units on Mojave that are about the size of a bus, each of them. That was $462,000. So $1 million of my budget was gone in the first couple of months of the school year. So we are very reliant on the bonds. The state doesn't fund us in the way they should. There once was a time, I don't know if anyone remembers, going back to the early 90s, the Student First lawsuit, where they eventually created the School Facilities Board, and they were funding schools. They had an algorithm based on your square footage and your age of each building, and they would provide you with funds. At the time, I was at Paradise Valley School District. We were getting $3 million a year from the state to take care of our buildings. Not bad. Things were a lot cheaper back then. But then somewhere along the line in the early 2000s, the legislature decided, well, we don't want to fund this anymore. And so they actually struck that from the law. And so building renewal is no longer a thing. They do not give us money in that way anymore. They haven't for years. And even when the law was still in place, they weren't funding it to its full value. So we've struggled in facilities for a long, long time. Deferred maintenance is something that we throw around all the time. We can't do this, we can't do that. So we just kick the can down the road, and hopefully someday we'll get to it. So right now, I'm doing this tour, trying to meet with as many people as I can to understand what the needs are for the district. Now, I already know the baseline needs, what I call baseline needs, because we've done a facility condition assessment in our schools. And that facility condition assessment, done by an outside vendor that went and toured every single one of our schools, looked at all of our equipment. The areas in blue, the big bubble, $176 million is what they're suggesting we will need to do over the course of the next 10 years. $176 million. Remember, our last bond in 2016, That was 229 million for 5 years. We actually eked it out because of COVID and because of the early problems with Denise Birdwell. We landed at about 7.5, 8 years worth of work. So we're looking at right now, I can't really talk about a bond. I've not talked to the governing board about a bond. I'm talking about capital planning. But capital planning eventually turns into a bond. There's no way ever that the state will fund us at a level that we can pay for all those things. 176 million over 10 years, that's just the bare minimum. That's air conditioning replacement, water heater replacement, drinking fountains, toilets, equipment that's in our buildings. That doesn't include anything that you as parents might actually want for your student, for your school. Shade in the parking lot, playground upgrades, any of those things, that's not part of my facility condition assessment. Mine is just keeping the buildings running, okay? So then as we're looking at the capital planning, well, we need to make sure that we're looking at all of the other things. Safety and security, kind of important to everybody, or not so much? Where's my water? So we've got that on there. We've got fine arts in there. People are going to Arcadia High School and sitting in chairs right now, I kid you not, that are about 3 degrees off because they took those chairs in the auditorium from the last bond back in 2008, rebuilt the Arcadia auditorium and reused the old chairs, and the pitch of the floor was different. So when you sit in those chairs, you might feel like you're leaning forward just a little bit. Those need to be taken care of. Those are things that need to be done. So I often get asked, well, how did you decide? Why did that school get more money than this school? And it was never my decision. At no point was it my decision. There was a list. When I took over the bond, there was a list. It was about 594 line items of projects. And I just clicked through them one at a time. Well, mostly 20 at a time. But went through them one by one by one. If you have been engaged with our board meetings or, really more about 2 years ago, we have a piece of software called Smartsheet. Every project that we've done associated with the bond is in Smartsheet. Every PO, every invoice, every piece of documentation associated with the work that we've done over the last 7 or 8 years is in Smartsheet. And you all can have access to that. Just go onto our website, find building services in departments, scroll down, it's on the right, bonds, click on that, and you can find it and look away. You can't do anything to it, but you can look and you can see everything that we've done. So again, I'm going to the schools. I hope that all of you, where are you, who do you represent? Desert Mountain? I was at Desert Mountain. Desert Mountain? Ingleside, I was just at Ingleside yesterday. So I think they're gonna have a parent night coming up soon. They just had the staff. Mountainside, haven't been there yet. Pima, haven't been there yet, sorry. Yes, I know, but I was supposed to be there tomorrow. Hopi, haven't been there yet. Because I don't recognize hardly any of you.
We're at Cochise, you'll see us tomorrow.
Yes, I will.
When are you coming to Cheyenne?
That's a great question. Ask your principal that. I can't keep track of my calendar that far ahead, but every principal has been told, and they're supposed to be scheduling the meetings because I so desperately want to get in front of everybody.
Is it this deja vu? Weren't you here 2 months ago?
I don't think I was here 2 months ago.
Yeah.
2 months ago?
It was last year. You visited to tell us you were going to do this tour.
I'm just so memorable. Is that what it is? That's so awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't 2 months ago. I can guarantee you that. So capital planning, that's what we're doing right now. And we're gonna lay it out so we know every project for every school. And we're gonna go through this process over the next couple of months. We're gonna conclude those meetings in December. Then I'm gonna take that information and I'm gonna take it to a bunch of friends in high places, contractors, architects that we work with, and they're gonna help us put price tags on all of it. And then we're gonna come back to the schools and we're gonna show you your requests, how much they cost, and then we're gonna prioritize them. 1 through 30, 1 through 50, 1 through 100, whatever it is. Create that priority and then have to ultimately add it all up, right? I've got 176 million of stuff that I know I'm gonna have to do in the next 10 years. And every year that number increases, that cost increases. We've got a 3% escalation on that right now, so we know we're gonna be okay. Although when we were in COVID and coming out of COVID, escalation was 40 to 60% on wood, on roofing materials, on steel. It was a disaster, but somehow we got through it. Yes?
So you're saying when we do a bond for 400 or 500 million, you already have half of it taken care of?
Yes, spent, yes.
So the question
But
was
that
when-
will be, so yes, I'll repeat it. So the question was, if we pass a $400 million bond or ask for a $400 million bond, half of it's already spent. Yes, pretty much. So obviously we have to be very thoughtful about all of the projects that we're gonna do. One thing that we'll have to do, I know we'll have to do, and it'll be a big spend, is the synthetic turf on all the high school football fields. It's warranted for 10 years, okay? So if we did 3 of them in 2017, the first year that I get to spend bond money, it will be out of warranty. Now, we take really, really good care of our synthetic turf fields, but we also use them a lot. So sometime in the next bond, we will have to replace the synthetic turf fields, redo the tracks, and that's about $3 million per school. So when you start adding up the numbers, it can get shocking really, really fast. Question?
Hello. I have a question, and then I'll pass it over to her. She has a question too. For the process of determining the priority, can you let us know who is in that conversation about the priority list? And then is there a formula for how you determine the priorities of the projects?
So, couple of things. First, we have to recognize life cycle. So if it's at the end of its life cycle, rather than allow it to break down, we recognize the life cycle, and I can show you the software that we've got for that. So life cycle is super important. When we had the bond started, it started it was very difficult. There was a bond oversight committee, and there were 12 members initially, and we eventually got down to about 9 members. People just got bored with it and stopped showing up. But they were the ones every month that we would sit down with and talk about the projects. Should this go before this goes? And it was basically a community member from each learning community. And then some at-large people. We had people, there was a gentleman, Wally Graham, that did not belong to the district, didn't have kids in the district, but he lived in the Arcadia area. Super smart man, and we had him on board, and he would help us work through some of the things. He worked for Frito-Lay and was a builder, and he was a big deal at Frito-Lay in his day. So we will, again, put together a bond oversight committee as we start going through that process and make sure that it's not just me making a decision in a vacuum. Okay?
Hi, I'm Morgan Kane. I'm here gathering information for Echo Canyon PTO, but my question is as a Yavapai staff member. I unfortunately had to miss your meeting. I had to do carpool and so couldn't make it. And I have some wants, and did I miss my opportunity to share?
You did not.
Okay.
So when I finish the meetings, both parents and staff, I send out an email with my complete presentation and the Mentimeter in PDF form. Anyone familiar with Mentimeter? It's basically software. You do a QR code, and then you can participate in a quiz, basically. And so I provide the Mentimeter from the event, and then I also then have surveys, parents, students, and staff. And so that email actually went out Friday to the staff that was there. And your principal has been given instructions, please share. And if there was, like at Yavapai, there were, I believe, 6 community members, PTO and community members, and there were 3 online, I think. So because they signed in, they got that email as well. And so my invite is tell a friend. Send it to as many people as you can, because this is really a short window. I started in August. We're trying to wrap it up by December because I have other milestones that I have to meet in order to go before the board and say, hey, this is the work that we've done. It looks like we're about here. This is how much money we should spend. What do you want to do? And they will then vote to say, we're going forward with a bond. This is the number we think our community is comfortable with. And there will be a lot of conversation about tax rates and all of that. Fortunately, in Scottsdale schools, the assessed valuation of the city and the school district is redonk. It is so big with the airport, with all of the retail, with everything that is Scottsdale. And we tax according to that assessed valuation. So our ability to pass a bond is really, really significant without having a huge impact on people's taxes. Okay? So, I could literally talk about this all night long, but I'd rather know what, or at least answer your questions. I can show you a couple other things. You tell me. Yes?
What is that
Solar buyouts. So, let me show you one other thing. Real quick. So this was the trifold, and then this is a copy of the actual bond pamphlet. Okay, so this was what went out to the voters. The voters were able to read this. 219 million went to renovations and rebuilds. 3 million went to safety and security, and 6 million went to transportation. That is what we are bound to do. We cannot vary from that. I can't spend 5 million on security and less on renovations. I can't spend 3 million on transportation. This is what we ask the voters to do. Therefore, this is what we have to do. Okay? So this has been my charge from the very beginning to make sure that all the money that is spent is in the right spot. Okay? So you can see on the bottom, subtotal of administrative capital improvements, that's 0. Okay? In Scottsdale schools, in 126 years, to my knowledge, we have never put any administrative costs on a bond. We've just used the money that we get to take care of whatever facilities. If you go to Well, Mesa probably has a ginormous district office. Phoenix Union has a 5-story building in downtown Phoenix. We have this, and we have 7575 that we traded for land with the city of Scottsdale. Those are our district office. My location doesn't have enough parking spaces to have my entire department in one place. They're scattered all over the place. Now, we're not even suggesting, I'm not suggesting that we're gonna do new space, but what I am suggesting is that we will need to do work to those facilities. Our warehouse is salmon color and the roof is 22 years old. A typical roof lasts 20 years. It leaks like a sieve. The district's network, these last storms, got rained on. So you imagine a data center, water got inside. So administrative is gonna be on this list this next time around. It won't be a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but we have to take care of the facilities. So your question was, well, what's this solar buyouts? In 2009, 10, and 11, David Peterson, when he was the superintendent, they decided to do solar and go big on solar. We have 18 locations in our district that have solar. And some are on the roof, some are in the parking lot. Chaparral, anyone? Cocoa Paw, anyone? Cocoa Paw, you guys just got them. Yeah. So a lot of schools have them. A lot of them are on the roof. Well, what happens when the roof goes bad and you've got solar on top? You got to deal with the solar, get it off the roof, which is what we had to do at Coronado High School. It was all on top. We had to take it down. That cost us about $750,000. And then we had to re-roof. Fortunately, we twisted some arms and the manufacturer covered their warranty. Despite the fact that it was the solar that ruined the fabric on the roof, they covered the warranty, took care of that, so we didn't have to spend that money. Most recently, Sundial, a company that has some of our solar systems, they decided, okay, we're gonna offer ours for sale. We don't want them anymore. We don't want to maintain them anymore. So Sundial had one set at Chaparral on the roof, and they had one set in the parking lot, in the back parking lot at Arcadia High School. They offered both systems for $1 million. We did the calculations, return on investment, how quickly can we get that money back? 10 years, okay? We had to put them somewhere, so we decided Cocoa Paw was the first place that we were gonna reuse the Chaparral stuff and put it in a different location. I haven't gotten any flowers or anything from the Cocoa Paw teachers, but I know they're loving that shade. So now, because we bought that solar, we get all of the generation back. Who has solar on their house? No one? Oh my goodness. I think so too. So if you have solar on your house, chances are you're paying 20 or 30 bucks for your APS bill, and you're paying some other amount, $150, $200, $250 for your solar to a third party, right? Not to APS or SRP, but to a third party. Well, we do the same thing. We have money that comes from APS for generating the electricity, not a lot, and then we pay a lease to a bank because we leased all of these solar systems throughout our district. Well, it's 10 years, 12, 14 years, going on 15 years by the time we pass the bond. All of these contracts are coming due. And so the deal in the contract is you can pay market value, whatever that is, because the people that own these are not gonna say, hey, here's a deal, 50 bucks. So the lawyers are involved right now. We're trying to figure out, okay, as these come due, what are we gonna pay for them? Will we get the ROI? Do we need to set aside dollars so we can put them on parking structures and all of that. So ideally, we will buy back all of our solar systems and have no payments going out to anybody. Pay off the lease, pay off the shysters that sold it to us, and start getting that generation back. So if we're generating all of this electricity, then that's going to do what? That's going to actually impact in a positive way our M&O, because that's where we pay for electricity, for gas, for water through our M&O budget. So it's not going to be millions and millions of dollars, but it could very well be at least $1 million that we start getting back. So it'll be another investment to buy it out, to place it somewhere, because we don't want to just buy it and put it in a storage container, so that we get that generation back. So that's going to be another big number, not a small number. That could be 18 campuses, and some of them, if you've looked, Desert Mountain High School, huge solar system. Well, guess what? What's in the parking lot is not it. There's more even on the roofs. So these are huge systems that we would have to buy out and then somehow relocate to places where we can make them useful. Yes? Everything I've ever read, minimally 25 years. If you take care of them, the solar panels will operate and generate electricity for about 25 years. Minimally. Now, the part that's actually almost more expensive than the solar panels is the electric gear that's underneath that takes care of getting that electricity back to the building. So they call them string inverters. If you go to Desert Mountain, they're little white boxes about this big, and the electricity goes to them, and then it sends it back to the school into the service entrance section at the school.
So you've done the math on, like, if they last 25 years, you've got 10 years of remaining life, and you've got to move them, and you've got to repair the under and reconnect and
Yes.
all that math.
Yep. We're not done with the math, because the key right now is the buyout. How much is the buyout going to be? Because we may run into, we've got 3 different solar companies that sold us solar at one point, and one of them got bought out by Tesla, and they are not fun to work with. We're talking with them right now for Coronado, and they pretty much told me 11 cents, pack sand. That's what we want, 11 cents. Well, with APS, I only pay 8 cents. So it's like, okay, what do I do? Do I tell Tesla, well, get all your solar off my property? Well, then I have steel structures sitting there like twigs all through the parking lot, and the solar is gone. So there's a lot of really heavy decisions that have to be made, because how much is it going to cost to buy it? How much is it going to cost to put it in parking lots? How much is it going to cost? And then figuring out that ROI long term to make sure that we are getting that investment. Yep. So the important part is, because the panels will still generate. So we tested everything that we had at Chaparral that we put at Cocopah. We tested, and it was still at 95% generation or better. Every panel we tested. So it's like, okay, well, we've got some life. The real technology, again, is below. All of the switches, all the gear, all of that, that's the real expensive part. So yes, we've got to do a lot of calculating and moving, yes. It's no small task, I can tell you that. It took us a year and 3 months to get it off the roof at Chaparral, land it on the structures at Cocopah, and get it started. We had 4 months of planning just with APS. So it's not just like, oh yeah, we'll just do that. Not at all. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Please, 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 go ask your principal, when are you meeting with Dennis? Because the turnout, some principals, man, they've been, your staff will be here. And they're there, 40, 50 people, it's fantastic. Others, they made it optional, 2 teachers showed up. I just cannot have people come back to me and say, oh, well, we didn't know about it. No one told us about it. Because I know that the principals are putting it on Parent Square and are doing the invites. I had 3 schools, 4 meetings yesterday, here today, tomorrow. I was supposed to be at Pima, but we delayed that one. And then I've got Cochise tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock, whatever it is. So I really want to make sure that people hear what I have to say, because Alexis, like Alexis said, I can't tell you to vote yes or vote no, but I can tell you that it's important. It is super, super important.
Something that just stands out to me is the 2850, now that's 2016 based on 100,000 property value, but still, you don't feel it. Like I think there's this like myth that it's an excessive amount of money. That's like nothing in comparison to the outcomes it yields. So now I know this is 2016, those numbers are gonna look a little bit different, but it is in the large scheme of everything that we pay and where our tax dollars go, that's nothing. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
I don't feel it at all.
And one of the things that I talked to Dr. Menzel about is, our voters are voting for governing board members. Our voters are voting for capital overrides. They're voting for eminent overrides. And so when we stretched a little further, I suggested, hey, let's skip that 24 election. It might be a little too crazy. Let's go a little further. And then it was like, oh, well, let's just start a 10-year cycle instead of a 5-year cycle. Most school districts go every 5 years for a bond. And so if we go for a 10-year cycle, we have more time to plan, and then we're not coming back to you again in 5 years. I mean, 5 years goes by like that, right? So we don't want to do that. We want to try and make sure we plan really well, have a really good sense of everything that we're going to do. You'll see everything. If there was one thing that I learned in the early time that I was here, is you guys count a lot. Anyone that was involved with Hopi and the rebuild, whew, that was fun, because the administration was not listening and they just wanted to do what they wanted to do. And the parents raised up and they made some noise. And so I don't want any noise. I want everybody to have a chance to say what they need to say. Now, this thing could grow to $700 million. Obviously, not a lot of people are going to be super excited about passing a $700 million bond. So we would have to pare it down, but we would communicate that and make sure that everybody understood, here are all the projects at every school, and here's the line that we're going to have to draw to make this a manageable bond for the voters. Doesn't matter what the administration thinks. It doesn't matter what the teachers think. It matters what the voters ultimately think, because they're either going to support it or they're not. And I hope through the work that I've done with the teachers that I've worked with all these years, with the community that I've worked with, that people will say, yep, we can count on what that guy says, and we will pass that bond. He's told the story. We know everything that they did in the past. We know what they're planning for the future, and that's something that people can get behind. So, questions? Last one? Well, I can probably tell you by memory Yeah, I'll just tell you by memory. August through the first 2 weeks of December, before we go on winter break, that is when I'm doing all of my meetings and collecting all of the information. At that point, we will shut off everything. Because at some point, I need to start doing the work of understanding where the money's at. December, the first part of December, I will be meeting with contractors and start doling out the projects that, hey, I need you to help me price this out, okay? These contractors have databases that are as deep as you could possibly imagine, and they could say, okay, an auditorium that needs a heavy renovation that includes this, this, and this, that's about $500 a square foot. And then we'd have a pretty good number of where we're at. We work with some of the biggest school builders in the state. We work with some of the smallest school builders in the state. And we will work with all of them so they all have the opportunity to contribute to what it is that I'm asking for. So that is December through March. And then in April, we will quickly go back, and we'll probably be doing some of this in between, but in April is like drop dead. I need to prioritize the projects. I need to put the package together. So April and May, we'll put the package together, and then before June 15th, the board has to make a resolution to pass the bond or to go out for a bond, okay? So there will be conversations along the way with the board to update them on what I'm doing and make sure that they're in the know. And then we will have a little progression, April, May, and into June to get them fully up to speed, fully knowledgeable of what it is that we're looking for, so that they have an opportunity to talk to their constituents and do what they need to do. And then it's ultimately their decision. Will we go or not? And then if they decide we go, then it's basically June through November. Well, not really through November, because you vote, November 8th, that we would go out and we would just talk about the bond. At no point are we allowed to convince you to vote yes, but we can talk about the facts. And the facts are, we've met with the community, we have this list of projects, we've priced it out, and this is the amount that we're going to be asking for. That's my timeline. I'm sticking to it.
Will a document like this be made available for the next bond in terms of price per homeowner that we can then
Oh, absolutely.
be like,
Yep,
hey, despite what you're hearing, this is how much you're gonna pay?
absolutely.
I think that's a really important piece.
I just got my assessment in the mail, and then on the back of it, like, cause it's.
It gives you a breakdown.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things you just have to like tell people, go to the assessor website and there's a pie chart and a line item.
Right. And on your assessment, it's community college, how much you pay for that, how much you pay for the fire district, how much you pay for the city of Scottsdale, all of that. And you'll find that Scottsdale, if you live in Scottsdale, that number's not very big. Not very big at all. So, okay? We good? Thank you all for your attention and your great questions. Thank you. I hope I lived up to Dr. Menzel's best in the world, or whatever he said.
Plug this, does it switch me back? Yes, okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, that was great. Okay, do we have any announcements from any school reps? No, okay, we'll keep working on that. All right, some quick executive board updates. So this is coming up in a week from today, next week. The district is putting on an event on how to navigate screen time, which is a big issue in all of our lives. And it is here, I think. I can't remember where it is. Yeah, no, it's here. Thank you. Yeah, here next week, 6 o'clock. The next event, we don't have a general meeting in November. Our next general meeting for SPC is actually in December, but we are having a book discussion in mid-November with Dr. Menzel and one of the teachers from Saguaro. So the entire Saguaro faculty read this book over the summer, and then they talked about it, and they're kind of using lessons that they've learned from it in the classroom this year. So if you have a teenager, or you will have a teenager, or you are in the middle of it all and you're interested, please join us. This will be in room D right down the hall at 11 o'clock for an hour on Thursday, November 13th. Our next general meeting, I said, is in December. It's December 10th. It'll be Dr. Menzel answering all kinds of questions and talking to us about school repurposing that we are in the middle of. You're going to see this slide for the next several months. So one of the questions at the beginning was about the math WIG, and Dr. Menzel mentioned that there's a K-11 math curriculum committee meeting, and they're updating the curriculum and thinking about the WIG and updating that curriculum. So the materials that the committee has entered the public review phase of the curriculum adoption process. So if you want to see what potentially your kids might be using for K-11 math, they are available for the public to review. They're here in MDA. You can do it. You can just show up Monday through Friday, 9 to 3. If those times don't work for you, if you call that phone number, they will make an appointment so you can review the materials. And that they will be on display, available to the public through March 10th. Okay, our budget update. So we had a few things come in today. So this is, yeah, it's accurate as of the 19th, so last weekend. So we've had a couple schools donate, and we've had a few grants come in, and then the only new expense, I think, from last time is we renewed our business license and our monthly email fee. Okay, thank you so much. If you have any questions about our budget, this is our pie chart, and we can tell you where it all comes from and where it all goes. It's all donations, and it all goes to not exciting things like website, email, liability insurance, things like that. Thank you.